this English lesson on struggles. So you might be wondering exactly what this lesson is about. I gave it the title or the topic, struggles, because each of us has things that we struggle with on a daily basis. Because we are humans, there are challenges in our lives. There are problems in our lives that we struggle with. So let me just check the audio here. Struggles. Sounds like everything's working great. So struggles can be serious. Struggles can be somewhat less serious. Struggles can be something that you yourself struggle with, or it can be something that someone does to you. So we're going to look at a number of different struggles. Some of them I think will make you laugh because you probably have that struggle yourself, but some of them are a lot more serious. Some of them might make you sad to think about. But the world is full of people, and one of the things that makes us human is that we have struggles in life. We have things that make our days challenging sometimes. So anyways, let's do this English lesson on struggles. By the way, I'm Bob the Canadian. If you're new here, welcome to this lesson. If you're one of the many people who are always here, I just want to say a big hi to all of you. Lots of you in the chat. It was nice to say hi to you before the live stream started this morning. But let's get started and start to talk about struggles. So the first, one last thing. So there's two ways to describe struggles, and you'll need to listen to which one I use. Sometimes you struggle with something, and sometimes you suffer from something, okay? And I can't give you an exact reason or why we use that little difference in phrase when we mention things, but some things you will use struggle with. You will say, I struggle with this. And other things you will say, I suffer from. So I suffer from this. So we'll go through these and you can kind of listen for those two phrases as we go along. But let's talk about, let's do a little English lesson on the struggles of life. So the first one is a very lighthearted one and one that I find kind of funny. Some people struggle with getting up on time. So some people set their alarm clock. This is a pretty old alarm clock, by the way, but they struggle with getting up on time. Sometimes people go to bed way too late every night, and then the next morning they struggle with getting out of bed. They struggle with getting up on time. Maybe they hit the snooze button too many times. On an alarm clock, when you hit the snooze button, it turns the alarm off. But then 7 or 10 minutes later, it goes off again. So some people struggle with getting up on time. I sometimes struggle with getting up on time. It's not very common. I'm usually someone who gets up fairly quickly. But in the winter, I struggle with getting up on time because the house is cold. And sometimes it's nice just to stay in bed with all the blankets on where it's nice and warm. So that is our first one. Some people struggle with getting up on time. For those of you just joining us, we are doing a little English lesson on the topic of struggles, things that people struggle with every day. Related to the struggle of getting up on time, some people struggle with being on time. Some people are always late. So you are either a person who struggles with this, or you probably know someone who struggles with this. I don't mean to sound too proud. I am a very timely person. I'm rarely late for things. I like to be on time, but I do know, I won't mention any names, but I do know some people who struggle with being on time. And you could also say they struggle with being late. So that would be the same thing, where if they need to be at work at 8 o'clock, they usually come in at 8:05. If they need to be somewhere at a certain time, they're usually always late. I'm smiling because I know someone really well who struggles with being on time. But again, I won't mention any names. I'm sure some of you struggle with being on time. So that's our first two. Some people struggle with getting up on time, and then related to that, they might be the same kind of person who struggles with being on time. So just a heads up, this is an English lesson on struggles. If you have questions, Todd will be posting the link for you in the chat. You can ask the question via the form there. Again, I will only be answering questions related to the topic of struggles, so I might skip your question. But anyways, welcome to the 300 people who are watching. Let's do a couple more, and then I will answer some questions. Some people struggle with nervousness. So for them, they are always maybe a little bit afraid of going places where there are large crowds. Maybe they struggle with nervousness when they need to speak up front or in front of a crowd. Maybe they struggle with nervousness because they have a new job. So when you're nervous, you're just always worried about the thing that you have to do. So for me, I am nervous today because I have to make sure all of the students in my school get one slice of pizza later today. I had to take care of that. We are having a bit of a party this afternoon. So my job is to make sure that the pizza from the pizza place comes on time and is paid for and is handed out in an orderly fashion. So I'm a little nervous about that. I don't generally struggle with nervousness though. As on the whole, I'm usually a fairly confident person unless I'm doing something completely new. Then I do struggle with it a bit. Hey, some people struggle with money. Particularly, they struggle with managing their money. So they might not know how to save money. When they go shopping, they might always spend too much money. This would be the kind of person that might always be asking to borrow money from you. But in English, we would say that some people struggle with money. Let's see here. Renata says she's not going to ask any questions today. That's okay, Renata. Ask away. But thank you so much for being here to learn some new vocabulary. So people do struggle with money. Sometimes people get their paycheck and they very quickly spend their entire paycheck. So that is not a nice situation to be in. If the opposite of struggling with money would be to be really good with money. That's how we would describe the opposite. But some people just can't stop spending money. Hey, let me jump over to some questions. I see that they're piling up. So Deek, let's see here. Deek Shanch, I have trouble saying your name, Deek. Deek Shanch says, how do I deal with people who judge and talk bad about others? So as hard as this is, you just need to ignore them, but it can be a challenge if the people who talk that way are in your own family or they're good friends. So I really feel for you, Deek Shanch, because that is a struggle. Some people go through life, and I'll talk about it a little bit later, where other people talk about them in a bad way, and it's not enjoyable. The simple solution is find new friends, but that's not that simple, is it? Let's see here. Let's see. Gaga has the next question. Gaga says, you have experienced many things in life. I guess, yes. I am a student and I'm really under pressure with everything. Not only my studies, I am worried about my future career. So this is the advice I always give. Just look at what you absolutely have to get done today and get that done. And think about a few things, if you have extra time today, that you could do that will make tomorrow better. But I think it's actually healthy to be worried a little bit about your future and to feel a bit of pressure, as long as it's not overwhelming. And as always, I recommend that you have a balance in life. So do some exercise, do some, Deek Shanch has been recommending I do some meditation. I haven't started that yet, but I will. But there are things that can help you a little bit. Henry from Taiwan. Hi, Teacher Bob. Hi, Henry. What's the difference between plight, dilemma, and predicament? So a plight takes place over a longer period of time. You know, my plight might be that I don't have enough time in my day. So that's a long-term problem. A dilemma is a single problem, and a predicament is a single problem. So my dilemma today is that, let me see, what is my dilemma today? My dilemma today was getting to work on time. A predicament, though, is usually something that happens to you, okay? So if I drove my car off the road, that would not be a good predicament. So hopefully that made sense. Let me do a couple more here and then we'll continue with the lesson. Solange from France says, Solange, that's a nice name. Hello, Bob. I have sent you a postcard last summer. I hope you have received it. Yes, thank you very much for that. No question for the moment. Thank you for all of the time you've invested. That's how I would say that. So you are very, very welcome. Thank you so much for watching. I'm just noticing on my screen, I'm kind of glowing a little bit. I don't know if I set the lights up different today. Let's see here. This is not, okay. Next one is from Saeed, and then we'll go back to the lesson. Saeed says, which one is better to use? He's struggling with a disease or he struggles with a disease. So here's where we have those two phrases. Usually you suffer from a disease. Although that's not 100% true. You could say he's struggling with cancer or he's suffering from cancer. Maybe you could use both in that situation, but both of your sentences are technically correct. He's struggling with a disease or he struggles with a disease. You can use both, those would work. Some people struggle with overeating. This is a very North American problem. In North America, people tend to eat too much. And it's kind of a funny thing to struggle with, but I have an understanding of this. I try really hard to eat healthy, but sometimes I overeat. I don't overeat to the point where I'm getting to be a very large man. I'm a fairly normal size person, mostly because I exercise. And what's interesting about this is we have people in the world who struggle with overeating, but we also have people in the world who don't have enough food. So it's very unfair. This is something I think that bothers me about North America, the fact that we have a lot of people who overeat, but then we have people in the world, other parts of the world, that don't have enough food. So some people struggle with overeating. I was just going to say, there was a question that went by. Oh, Jason J in the chat said, what is the temperature in Canada? I think it's -1 this morning, Celsius. So again, hello to everyone in the chat. Hello to the 437 people watching. We are just getting started on an English lesson about the struggles of life. We've looked at a few so far, and I will happily admit whichever struggles I suffer from. Or things that I struggle with. But welcome. Hello, Sean from Free99 has just jumped in the chat. And let's keep going here. By the way, do you like my fancy mug this morning? I thought this was a nice mug. It has a bird on the one side. I'm just going to clear my throat for a sec. I'm sorry for the noise. There we go. Hey, some people struggle with social media, and in particular, they struggle with maybe a little bit of an addiction to social media. So we have things like Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and Snapchat and TikTok. There are all kinds of different social media apps or social media platforms. And some people struggle with putting it down. So they have their phone and they're always looking at their phone. So in the world, we have people who struggle with I think I could call it a social media addiction. So they struggle with social media. We also have, I'm not sure if your culture drinks alcohol or not, but we have people who suffer from or struggle with, so they suffer from alcoholism, but they struggle with alcohol. So alcoholism is when you can't control how much alcohol you drink. So we have people in the world who struggle with alcohol, and then notice the difference in phrasing. They suffer from alcoholism. So this is a pretty straightforward one to explain. We have things like beer and wine and liquor. These are alcoholic beverages. They are either brewed or distilled. And there are people in the world who struggle with the amount of alcohol that they consume. I know that there are a lot of other things in the world as well that can cause addictions, but one of the things that people struggle with is alcohol. So you can see how we're kind of, excuse me, bridging the gap here. One thing people struggle with is sleeping in. That's a pretty light, kind of a funny one, right? You kind of laugh at someone who sleeps in. But when someone suffers from alcoholism, when someone struggles with alcohol, it can be a difficult situation, especially if it is a family member. It's hard to know how to help them. So people struggle with alcohol. That's not a very nice sound, is it? So sorry, I'm coughing away on camera here. I really have no choice. I suffer from a bit of a sore throat. See how I use the English phrase there? Some people suffer from drug use. They suffer from, they struggle with controlling an addiction to drugs. And so you will have people that possibly that you know who maybe they work all day and they use a lot of their money to buy illegal drugs. In English, we say people do drugs. So when we're referring to bad drugs, we would say that people, do drugs. Like, oh, did you hear about cousin Joey? He's into drugs, or he's doing drugs. This is a tough one too, because it is an addiction. And I think you are familiar with the word addiction. When you're addicted to something, you yourself have trouble controlling how much you use that item or that substance. So drugs are another thing that people sometimes struggle with. This is, I think, a societal problem. That means that all of society has to do something to help regulate or control or help people who struggle with drugs. I'll do one more and then we'll jump back to the questions. Some people suffer from, in particular, low self-esteem. So self-esteem is how you feel about yourself, okay? So if you like yourself a lot, if you are a content and happy person, we would say that you have good self-esteem. But if you feel bad about yourself, if you are someone who you always think negative thoughts about yourself, we would say that you struggle with low self-esteem. This is a challenging one. I think we all, excuse me, at some point in life struggle with low self-esteem. It's not a pleasant thing to struggle with. Some people go through long periods of time where they suffer from low self-esteem, and that can lead to I'm really sorry. That is not a nice sound for you to all hear. But sometimes after long periods of having low self-esteem, you can sink into depression. So depression, there's a lot of different forms of depression. Depression is when you just don't have a positive outlook on life. You feel down a lot. It's difficult for me to describe. I know people who have been depressed. So you can suffer from a light depression, or you can have a more serious form of depression. But when you suffer from depression, so that's a suffer from, you suffer from depression, you just don't have a lot of energy or desire to be out and about in the world. And it's a very challenging thing to suffer from. I know some of you in the comments have mentioned that you suffer a bit from depression. It's always good to seek out medical help, to see a doctor if you're suffering from real depression. So that's a big struggle. That's a very serious struggle in life. Let me see here. Let me jump over to the questions. I've been letting them build up. Oh no. Let's see here. Next question is from Hung. What's the difference between struggle and effort? So when I struggle with something, it means that every day I have to work at it and it's hard for me, okay? But effort is when you put in the work to overcome something. So I put a lot of effort into making all of these handouts, making all of these papers, okay? So I don't struggle with it. I work hard at it. I put a lot of effort into making those. It's actually not that much work, by the way. Let's see here. I'm going to skip the questions that are not on topic. So if I don't answer your question, save it for tomorrow night. There will be a live lesson tomorrow night where any question is okay. Tu Nyung says, what do you usually do to get rid of nervousness? So if there is something I am nervous to do, I try to do it a lot. I know it sounds difficult, but for instance, when I at first started teaching, it was hard for me to talk in front of the class, but I just did it a lot. I made it the first thing I did every day. Before I would give the students work to do, I would make sure that I would stand and talk in front of the class so that I could eventually overcome my nervousness. So that's what I would do. Let's see here. This is from Dimitro from the Ukraine. Says, hi Bob, I struggled to get to school on time. So my physics teacher who lived nearby and whom I raced once we got off the bus, I might have been late if his lesson was first. So we have students here too who struggle to get to school on time. It can be a challenge to get to work on time or to get to school on time. Certainly racing someone off the bus might motivate you to actually get there on time. Let's see, next question is from Solange. Hi again, can I say I have a lot of struggles? Yes, absolutely. You could say, my day is hard. I have a lot of struggles in life. I would add the in life part, but you can definitely say that. You could say, I have a lot of struggles. I struggle with getting up on time. I struggle with getting to work on time. I struggle with money. You could say all of those things. Let's see here. Going to jump through the questions that aren't on topic. Sorry about that. Lolly has the next question. What's the difference between hurdle and obstacle? They are pretty much the same thing. A hurdle is actually something that a runner jumps over. If you watch races at the Olympics, they have hurdles. So we use the same word to describe a problem in our day. I have to get over a few hurdles today. Those would be little problems. You could also say, there's a few obstacles in my way today. That would work as well. So I would say you could use both. Let me clean up my questions here, and then we'll get back to the lesson. Pavlo says, can people struggle both mentally and physically? Yes, absolutely. So you can have something that's a mental or spiritual struggle, but you can also have a physical struggle where you maybe have a broken arm or something like that. Okay, another thing people struggle with is loss. So in English, when we say that someone is struggling with loss, it means someone they know or someone in their family has died, okay? So this might be one that you're not familiar with, but years ago, my dad passed away. I think I was 30 years old. My dad passed away. He was only 56 years old. And so my brothers and sisters and my mom, we struggled with loss. So we struggled with the loss of my dad. But in a general sense, you can say that, she lost her husband. She struggled with loss, or she is struggling with loss right now. You could also say that someone is struggling with grief. I forgot to add that word. But that's how you would talk about someone who is just incredibly sad because someone they know has died. And it doesn't have to be recent. It could be that that person died recently, but it can also be a person that died a year or two ago or more. It takes a different amount of time for different people when they're struggling with loss. So some people, we're back to things that can be addicting. Some people struggle with smoking. They want to quit smoking, but because the nicotine is addictive, they have trouble and they struggle with smoking. Some people just like smoking and they don't think they're struggling with it, but some people do struggle with, I think, more quitting smoking. It's difficult for some people to quit smoking. 529 people watching, that's a lot. Anyways, we're about halfway through a lesson. On Struggles, I'm trying to explain the things that all of us at one time or another have either struggled with or we know someone who has. I'm Bob the Canadian. If you're new here, you should click that red subscribe button down there, because then you'll know when I make new videos. And before we continue the lesson, don't forget to watch this lesson or parts of it again tomorrow to help reinforce what you are hearing. Some people struggle with finding a partner. So as you go through life, it's nice to find someone to marry. But it can be a struggle in English we would say you need to get out there, okay? So you need to go out in public, you need to go to places where people are meeting socially, or you need to be introduced to someone. But there are many people in life who really would love to have a partner. They would love to be married. They would love to have a boyfriend or girlfriend, but they struggle with finding a partner. So I hope all of you, as you go through life, find a way or find a place where you can meet someone. We would say in English, the love of your life. So hopefully you find the love of your life. That's how we describe the person who we have been, I guess, looking for all our lives, and when we finally meet them. Jen, by the way, is the love of my life. So some people struggle with finding a partner. And because of that, I'm going to jump ahead here. They might struggle with loneliness, okay? It is a big world with a lot of people in it, but it can still be a world where people struggle with loneliness. When you are lonely, obviously you are all alone. You would love to have more friends. You would love to maybe have a partner, a romantic partner, but some people struggle with loneliness. So here is my challenge to all 542 of you today. Go out today and be kind to everyone. Say hi to everyone. There are people that you probably know who struggle with loneliness, who are just kind of go through their day and their weekend and maybe they don't have someone. So seek these people out and be kind to them and be nice to them. So that's my challenge to you today. And if you are someone who is lonely, if you suffer from loneliness or struggle with loneliness, you can say that one both ways. I hope today someone is kind to you. I hope that you find someone to talk to. This next one is kind of a funny one, and I suffer from this. In English, some people struggle with having a big mouth. Now, that doesn't mean that your mouth is big. In English, if we say someone has a big mouth, it means sometimes they talk before they think, or they talk a lot, okay? So it doesn't mean that your mouth is big. But if I say, my uncle has such a big mouth, it means that he'll just say anything. He's always talking. I have this problem sometimes. Sometimes I think I'm right and I just say it without thinking about how it might make someone feel. So some people struggle with having a big mouth. I'm definitely one of those people. Let me just jump back and check some questions for a sec. Hardy I'm laughing at myself now. That's good though. It's good to laugh at yourself once in a while. Hardy from China says, how do you deal with spending too much time on social media? I'm struggling with it now. I think here's a good thing to do. If you turn off your notifications, set your phone so it doesn't beep or buzz when you get a new notification. And then when you go home, put your phone somewhere for a few hours and don't leave it in your pocket, okay? When it's in your pocket and it goes bing or it buzzes, that's one of the ways that you can get kind of addicted to social media. So turn the phone off, turn the notifications off, put the phone away. That's what I would recommend that you do. Let's see here. Next question from Saeed. Can struggle be used instead of fight, especially in a physical fight? Yes. So two people can have a struggle where they're actually kind of wrestling with each other, or they can be fighting where they're actually punching each other. But struggle, I think, is used a little more the way I'm using it this morning. We don't often use it to describe a physical fight, although it would be correct. Okay, you could say that, you know, the two kids were struggling on the floor with each other. So there we go. Let's see. Youssef says, "Sir, I hope my question will be light and cool on you. Do you meet with people who support football and they're usually complaining about how the team playing without..." So I think what you're saying here is some people struggle with having to work with people, or they know people who don't support the same team as them. I hope I'm answering your question correctly, Youssef. Some people have to struggle with people who talk about sports all the time. That's sometimes something that we hear. So Solange says, "Can we use the noun fight?" So usually when we're talking about the kinds of things I'm talking about, we use struggle, you know, struggle with or suffer from. But you could use fight in some of the situations. Not all of them, but you could in some of them for sure. Okay, some people struggle with anger, or they struggle with having a bad temper. So when you have a bad temper, you get angry really easily. If Semyon says, "I can't turn off my phone because I'm watching Bob the Canadian." Yeah, that's true. Sorry to make all these videos and make it hard for you to put down your phones, but some people struggle with anger. You probably know someone who gets angry really easily, and some people struggle with that. Some people are overworked. So you might have a job where you just struggle because you are overworked. You work 10, 11, 12, 16 hours a day. And that is a challenge. That is something that some people struggle with. Maybe you have two jobs. Maybe you work one job and then you go home and have some food to eat, and you go and work another job. So you struggle with being overworked. And then to go along with that, you might be struggling with being underpaid. So you might be overworked and underpaid. That is not a nice situation to be in. So this can lead to you having struggles with money. So if you're underpaid and you don't have enough money, you might struggle with being underpaid. It's not a nice situation. I hope today your boss gives you a raise. Could you imagine if everyone watching this live English lesson, when they were done and the next time you went to work, your boss said, "You're getting a raise. Excellent work. We love all the work you do. You're getting a raise today." That'd be kind of cool, wouldn't it? Just want to say hi again to all the 563 people watching. That is awesome. Some people struggle with hunger. So we looked at the fact that some people struggle with overeating. So they live in countries where there's lots of food, but there are also many countries in the world where people struggle with hunger. That really makes me sad. I feel like in the world we live in, with all of the wealth and technology around the world, there should be no more hunger. So I do what I can in terms of donating money to causes in the world that reduce world hunger. But some people on a daily basis struggle with hunger. They don't know where their next meal is coming from, or they don't have enough food every day. So I hope for some of you out there who are watching, I hope that you have the food that you need for today. I know some of you have mentioned or messaged me to say that you live in countries or you live in places where it is a struggle to find food every day. So I really, really hope that all of you out there are able to find the food that you need today. So, and if you are someone who has wealth and has money, I strongly encourage you to find a way to help people around the world who are struggling with hunger, or even in your own cities, okay? So do that today if you can. Some people struggle with bullies. People bully them. When you are bullied, it means someone is bothering you or bugging you every day or repeatedly. It might be in person or it might be online. Bullying happens more in schools, but it can also happen to adults. When someone bullies you, when you suffer from or you struggle with bullying, it means that every day there is one or two people who are just not kind to you. I am not someone who has patience for bullies. I do not like people that bully other people. It bothers me a lot when that happens. So hopefully none of you are bullies. If you are a bully, stop it. And hopefully none of you are being bullied. Hopefully no one is bullying you. Hopefully you have a nice day at school or work today, and that doesn't happen. It can also happen from family members. You may have a brother or sister or even a parent who is just mean all the time. So hopefully that isn't happening to you. Hopefully you are not struggling with that on a daily basis. Let me jump back to the questions. Let's see here. We'll do a few questions and then we'll go back to the lesson. I think I just clicked the wrong thing. Here we go. Fabio from Italy says, hi Bob, hi Fabio. What's the difference between struggle and strive? Are they interchangeable? Thanks a lot. Not exactly. So when you struggle with something, it's like every day it's something that you have to think about and work through. When you strive for something, it means you're working towards it. So you strive towards a goal. So if your goal is to be a really good athlete, you might practice every day and eat really healthy because you are striving towards the goal of being an athlete. So when you strive, you think about that thing all the time and you do what you need to do to get ahead. Let's see here. Next question is from Agel. Sorry if there's students yelling in the background. I guess that makes you realize I'm actually a teacher when I'm in a classroom and you can hear students yelling in the hall. I think they just finished their basketball or volleyball practice. There were a couple practices in the gym this morning. Agel says, hi Bob. Hi Agel. I've been struggling learning English for many years. Can you give advice to people who, like me, are struggling with learning languages? Thank you. You just have to keep working at it. If you can, I say this a lot, read, write, listen, speak, and learn vocabulary every day. Let me repeat that. Read something in English every day. Write something in English every day. Listen to English every day. Speak English every day, even if it's just out loud by yourself, and learn some new vocabulary. That's the best. And hire a tutor if you can afford a tutor. That is a very helpful thing to do. So, Papi Chulo, hi Papi, welcome. And Bob, what's the difference between trouble and problem? So when you have trouble, it's kind of a general term. I have trouble with my car. But when you say that you have a problem, it's very specific, okay? So you could say, I just have trouble with my car all the time. That could mean the tires go flat and the engine doesn't work right. But if you say, I have a problem with my car, it would mean that you have a specific thing wrong with it. Although, now that I say that, you could say, I'm always having problems with my car. You could pluralize it. In that sense, if you're always having trouble or you're always having problems, they mean the same thing, okay? Hopefully you caught the difference there. Simone Ribeiro says, hi from Parana in Brazil. Thank you for your help with my English. I have a problem. I struggle with shyness. Yes, I think that's actually my next one. People struggle with being shy. So let's talk about that. When you are shy, it's you're nervous to talk to other people. When you're shy or you struggle with shyness, you want to just be by yourself or with people you know. The only thing I can say if you're shy is you just have to slowly work your way into social situations where you can become more comfortable. I'm a firm believer in if you repeat the things that you find challenging, if you repeat the things that are hard for you to do in life, eventually you do get used to it. As human beings, we adapt, okay? So we slowly become better at things. So hopefully you are able to do that. Let's see here. Trying to find just a few more questions. Let's see here. Demetrio says, there was a question in the chat, how to describe someone who is not accepted by the community. Can they be called an outcast? Yes, so sometimes people struggle with fitting in. People struggle with fitting in. So fitting in means that you are accepted by the group of people around you. So some people do struggle with fitting in to a group. And if you don't fit in, we would say that you could be called an outcast. It's a pretty strong term. We would normally in English say, that person is having trouble fitting in, or they're struggling to fit in. That would be a good way to describe it. Maybe some people in the chat have some recommendations for how to overcome shyness. I was very shy as a child, and I'm still somewhat shy as a person. You might find that hard to believe because I'm always doing videos, but this is easier for me in a way because I'm just in a classroom. I know there's 500 people watching, 600 people watching. That's a little crazy. But if I was to talk in front of 600 people in a room, in a stadium, I would probably be quite nervous and a little bit shy. So let's do a couple more questions. I'm going to go backwards. Mao says, I am struggling with everyday household chores. I think everyone struggles with that, Mao. I struggle with keeping our house clean and doing the dishes every day. Let's see here. Let's see. Luke has the next question. Luke says, hi, Bob, your channel really deserves 1 million thumbs up. Thank you very much. You guys can give me a thumbs up if you want. Could I say deep instead upset when I have struggles? So you could have deep struggles. Yeah, I think you could say that. When we use deep, it's just what we call a quantifier. It defines how much of something. So you could say, I have deep struggles with addiction, okay? I have deep struggles. That would certainly work for sure. Let's see here. Leo Chen says, this is a great question from Taiwan. Hi, Bob. Are there other words for expressions similar to struggle with, but with different degrees of seriousness? I think there could be. I think you've heard me say a few times, I have a problem with. You could say that as well. Lolly Lolly has given me a super chat. Thank you so much, Lolly Lolly. That is very, very generous of you. No need to do that, but I do appreciate it, and I do use the money in a good way. I use it to pay for internet on the farm. Anyways, yes, I think you could say, I have problems with, I struggle with, I have trouble avoiding. So you could say, I have trouble avoiding cigarettes. That would be another way to say it. But let's talk about the last one, which is something that I really feel like the world would be a better place. Some people struggle with racism, or they suffer from racism, maybe in the workplace, maybe at your job. I printed out this where it says stop racism. So just to review, racism is when people hate other people, or people dislike other people because they are from a different country, because their skin is a different color. I am someone who someday I hope there is no racism in the world. I know that there are so many different beautiful people in the world. I truly believe that we are all just created beautifully, that we are beautiful people. And I really hope that someday, as the world matures and as we get to know each other better, that we can eliminate racism completely, that we can not be concerned about how someone looks when we think about them. So I'm going to take this moment just to ask all 605 of you to just be kind to everyone that you know, regardless of where they're from, regardless of their skin color. Let's all do our part to stop racism in the world. It is a challenging thing, I think, for the world to work on and to eliminate, but I think if we work hard, we can get rid of racism someday. I just like everybody. So that's how I go through my day. I just like everybody. English Danny has left a super chat as well. Thank you so much, English Danny. That is very, very kind of you. That is a generous amount as well. So thank you. But let's end on that note. Let's all work today to be kind, to be generous, to stop things like racism. If you can help people in your city or town or country or the world who are suffering from hunger, let's work on that. I think that This is a good start. Just 600 people learning a little bit of English so that we all know each other a bit better. Anyways, I'm Bob the Canadian. Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to wrap this up. Remember, don't forget to click that subscribe button if you're new here. Thumbs up are always welcome. Do come back tomorrow. There will be subtitles on this video. Come back tomorrow and re-watch the parts where you had trouble understanding with the subtitles on. That's just a great thing to do. This was good. I hope that of all the things we went through, all of the struggles in life, if you are suffering from or struggling with any of the things I mentioned, I just hope for you and wish for you to have a good day, that you can find a way to be free of that struggle, whether it's something as simple as getting up late every morning, or whether it's more serious where you suffer from low self-esteem or you struggle with depression. I hope you find people who are kind. I hope that you find a path to feeling better or to overcome that struggle or what you are suffering from. Anyways, Bob the Canadian, have a really, really good weekend. I'm going to press the red button now, and that will be the end. By the way, live stream tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Come and ask any questions you want, and I will try to answer them. Thank you very much. Have a really good day.